So kia ora koutou katoa. So ko Geraldine Tew tokuanga. I set up the Recreators 5 years ago, and before that I spent 14 years working in refugee and protection on human rights. And while I was working in immigration with refugees, I really missed working on environmental issues. And now that I work in the environment, I really miss working on human rights. And actually, I have now come to the conclusion that we will not solve the climate crisis if we do not solve the equity crisis. Yeah. So I tried to set up a social enterprise based on both of those beliefs. And then actually the idea originally came from, and I know this is probably not the right audience, but it was a driver training program that I was working on for former refugees. Going back to what Bridget said, there is massive trajectory differences in the outcomes for people with and without car travel in this country because there is no other equitable way to get around. So with that in mind, I set up this program. I spent 3 years trying to get funding for it all over the country, all in all the different settlement areas, and I got that up and going. And then towards the end, we did the final one in Auckland because Auckland was the hardest. It was a nightmare to get. It's a nightmare to get around Auckland, so it was much easier to do it in Palmerston North and Nelson and Hamilton and Invercargill, but it was, yeah. So we left Auckland last, and I wanted to take a former refugee myself and go through the process. So I had a lady from Rwanda who I taught to drive. And so the idea for upcycling came from her. I was kind of thinking she had a disability. She wasn't able to get around easily, and I knew she wasn't able to work. And I thought, well, maybe if she did something like upcycling that was both environmental and would give her a form of income, that it would just kind of fulfill her life a little bit more. So that was where the idea came from. And since then, we work with a whole pile of different people, actually. So we started out with the easiest option, which was children. So children love to upcycle. So we started out with that group, and we still teach them after school classes and school holidays. It's probably where we earn, dare I say, our most money from the kids. It's terrible. But yeah, so we've worked into different spaces. So we work with adults, now we've worked with people with special needs. We definitely see a lot of people on the spectrum desire what we do and get some, and I know well-being is now off the charts, but it is. So they do get some positivity from making. I should get this clicker, shouldn't I? Because I haven't, I'll start waffling on. Okay, so. There we go. So what do we do at the Recreators? So we teach people a variety of upcycling techniques. The main aim was, in my mind, was to reduce consumerism, and to reduce consumerism through being able to make with stuff that already exists. So then we went to, well, let's teach DIY skills, so you get very handy at fixing things and whatever. So when we're marketing it, and I use a lot of, I am an entrepreneur, so I will use a lot of lingo like, viability and marketability. So we, in order to get our funding, we talk about DIY skills more so than the upcycling, because that goes across both left and right. We do design thinking around waste, which is actually my most favorite thing, is to be able to look at something that's really crusty and be able to think about how to turn it into something amazing. And to be able to share that skill is quite phenomenal. So I'm very privileged to be able to do that. And so leading into that design thinking and the ability to be able to do it leads to, as I said, mental well-being. It is really, and so I feel that we connect to an audience that is quite different from this audience. We can connect to anybody, and we often connect to non-environmentalists by doing this work. We connect to people that just want creativity. And then we weave in, through whatever we are working with, the story behind the material. Where did it come from? Where will it go to? Who are the people that made it? What was involved? Was there ethical supply chain issues? And we can weave that through while they're literally weaving. So here are some examples of classes that we run. So we do, my favorite is woodworking. I do love woodworking. I love power tools. I often, when I get an impact driver, go, when it pummels in, and kids all laugh at me when I do it. So we teach woodworking. We teach anywhere from young kids from age 5. We're doing rangatahi classes, and we do adult classes. We also do wooden furniture restoration, upcycle painting techniques. We'll talk about wood and where it comes from. I've just gotten a laser cutter, which I'm very excited about. And actually, I'm even more excited when I see my electricity bill, because it's actually quite efficient. And it's an amazing piece of equipment to actually turn something that, again, looks really crusty and make it look really professional looking. And it's able to change people's perceptions around materials. And then I've got down here, I've got Green Beauty. So it is a collective of creatives. So I am not very good actually at making anything myself, but I have a big team of people, and they are amazing at making things. So I have one woman from a company called White Cloud Skincare, and she is very pedantic about every single material. Where has it come from? Where will it go to? Who has made it? Is it ethical? Is it sustainable? Is it organic? So we teach all those classes. So one of the other things that we do is that we have a contract with Auckland Council, and they are interested in extending the knowledge around circular economy. And so we've been teaching 10 low decile schools and helping them with their NCEA business project. So kids in high schools have to make or sell a product as part of their NCEA 1 to 3 curriculum. And so we help them do that. So we'll go in and we use the story of a t-shirt. So I know everybody probably knows this, but we talk about the deforestation, the biodiversity loss. We talk about the sprays that go on the cotton itself. We talk about the human rights for harvesting. We talk about more human rights and more chemicals for the dyeing. We talk about the water that goes into a t-shirt, the transport, the petrol, more human rights in making it, more transport, and then it goes to landfill. And I always want to say, what is the price of that t-shirt? At the moment, it's $6.50 in Kmart. So all of that for $6.50, and people just landfill it. So I use that as an example for rangatahi to try and emphasize a point that we have to stop doing this. So I'm probably just going to go through here, which I've just said. So why upcycling? The longer I do it, the more I actually believe in it. I will say, because I do see that it can change mindsets, and I do see that we have an audience that are not the normal green audience. I do see it as a form of resilience. I do see it as a form of mental well-being, because people, when they make with their hands, it just calms them down. I do see the empowerment through actually the confidence and the competence somebody gets when they've made something themselves. We see a lot of intergenerational learning, particularly in our school holidays. We see a lot of parents and grandparents bring their kids in. Again, people love designing. I have to say, none of us in our team are not very good at the product sales side of things. Nobody loves manufacturing multiple things, but they love designing one thing and maybe twice, so they get the hang of it. It is a purposeful living. It does highlight the ways that we make so many different types of products. It highlights that we can do it locally, but it also, I will say, it does highlight supply chain issues. So if there are certain things, because I need a lot of tools, materials, and so if something goes out of stock, then we do tend to be creative in how we move around it, but it does highlight supply chain issues for certain things. And it does allow people to slow down and give back. And so here are some photos of things that we've done. So we do sewing, weaving, woodworking, lots of craft. There's my favorite, the pallets. Look at them, they're beautiful. They're from the Auckland Transport Eastern Busway. So what I do is very physical. So we have to get all of those pallets, and they've all got to be denailed. And then they've got to be stacked and moved again multiple times, and then moved. And I've only got less than 200 square meters. So they are beautiful, but they are a pain to work with as well. But anyway, that's what we save. The last thing I want to say is that chair down the bottom, that piece of wood. Can you see how ugly it is? Can you see, isn't it really ugly? And I really love, particularly with rangatahi, I love to be able to take that piece of wood and say, it's kind of nearly a metaphor for people's lives. It's like, it looks terrible, it looks like you're going to throw it away, but you can put it through a thicknesser, comes out the other end, and they're like, oh. And then you can make something beautiful out of it. And to be able to use that in so many different ways in life, to say, you have to look at things differently. Everything has value. Anyway, so that's me. Please like us on our social media, comment on what we do. If you ever want a workshop in your area, get in touch. Kia ora.